With the deck stacked against them, these Georgia families have two key supporters that may turn the tide in their favor. The first is Jason Cranford, a Georgia native who serves as a caregiver to over 90 patients in Colorado. His passion for this cause has led him to breed plants with the specific components that help with seizure suppression. This process can take years, and that hard work has paid off for the patients Jason treats.
This is a machine that makes all the extracts for the pediatric epilepsy patients. It's a real simple, basic design that uses heat and a small pump to extract the cannabinoids. It runs off of vegetable oils like canola, safflower, hemp oil. It's a 100% organic process with organic plant material and organic safflower oil. These vials get filled up with the oil, the solvent. These two tubes get filled up with the plant material. We turn the heat on until we hit our target temp. Then we turn the pump on, and then we open up the chambers with these valves right here. At the end of the process, it fills this tank with a filtered oil that is the actual medicine. And here's a bottle of that. So the end product is just a really clean, organic solvent. All of these strains in this greenhouse have been collected and bred specifically for CBD content. And this strain in particular is the Haley's Hope. So the predominant cannabinoids in this plant are non-intoxicating. The THC would be the smallest cannabinoid found in the plant. The parents that I usually deal with are at the end of their rope. They're extremely desperate. They've exhausted all pharmaceutical medicines and nothing stopped the seizures. They've tried everything and nothing's been successful. Cannabidiol remains a Schedule I controlled substance with the DEA and the federal government. So therefore, this non-intoxicating product, non-lethal product, is still illegal in Georgia. So the access is the #1 problem for the parents in Georgia. They basically have to sell their homes, quit their jobs, split their families, and move halfway across the country to save their children's life. And it's because of poor legislation.
The biggest player in all of this is State Representative Alan Peak, author of HB 885. Late in the game, he turned this idea into a piece of legislation that would have at least granted these families protection from prosecution if they had cannabis oil in Georgia. When the bill died on the House floor, he decided to create the Journey of Hope, a nonprofit that assists families with travel and housing expenses if they need to relocate to access cannabis oil. Alan Peak has a difficult job in the coming session. Crafting a new bill won't be easy. Over the past several weeks, he's been holding public panel meetings across Georgia with law enforcement and medical professionals, as well as patients and parents who seek this treatment in-state. A bill too broad will lose support in a conservative state like Georgia, and laws that limit medication to CBD only ignore the fact that THC, as controversial as it may be, is an essential ingredient in this medicine.
Well, I think, one, we got to make sure it's safe. We're providing a safe product to our citizens. I think that's first and foremost. I think we've got to make sure that we do it cost effective, that we are able to provide cannabis oil in a method that can reach all citizens. I think we need to do something, draft legislation that can move quickly. You know, we don't need to set up a structure that's going to take 2 or 3 years to get in place. We need to draft something that, okay, we set up the infrastructure, we set up the rules and regulations, and we start growing. We grow the product here in Georgia and process it here and distribute it here. I think it's got to be safe, it's got to be effective, it's got to be timely. And I think if we meet those 3 criteria, we'll draft some good legislation.
So my name is Dr. Terry Markimes. I've been practicing clinical neurology now for approximately 30 years. The great majority of children that have moved to Colorado because of this problem are in absolute dire straits. By the time they get here, they have already been through conventional diagnosis and treatment modalities. I think that the safety issue of the other medicines have to be seen in context with what CBD offers. The major concern is usually that we're going to stop the child from breathing with these other conventional pharmaceutical drugs. Cannabinoids don't appear to have any significant effect on the respiratory system at all. Everything has to be taken into context, and THC in low quantities is not much to be concerned about in contrast to all the other issues.
So let's look at what we know. Marijuana being classified as a Schedule I drug was at best misguided. Nobody engaged in this issue denies that at this point. But unfortunately, due to federal gridlock, it looks like it's stuck that way. The only good news is that so far states are being allowed to take action on their own, despite federal prohibition. In Georgia, reform is overwhelmingly popular among elected officials and voters, but special interests are standing in the way of meaningful legislation that will bring these families home. We know that the old arguments about the levels of THC become negligible when we acknowledge that the patients who need cannabis oil are already taking prescriptions like OxyContin and methadone. Think about that. Now, ideally, no medications, especially those for children, would get the patient high. But the fact is that most of these anti-epileptic drugs are not only getting them extremely high, they can potentially be fatal. This debate is crucial, however, because the levels of THC play an important role in the treatment of other diseases.
We're fighting for a medicine for our child to take so she can have a better life. There are other people fighting for their children. There are other people fighting to make their cancer go away, to help with their glaucoma, to help with MS. It has nothing to do with recreational use whatsoever.
It's a no-brainer because if people are given the opportunity, why in the world would they uproot their families, leave all their support group, and move 2,000 miles away when they could live and work and be close to their families here? I mean, it's an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, to us, it would mean they could come home.
Yeah.
And that's important because you want your family back.
Sure,
Oh,
absolutely,
sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
As I
How
say,
badly do you miss your granddaughter and your grandkids?
I can't tell you how bad. I cannot tell you how bad. Half of it, we have 11 grandchildren. 5 of them are gone.
Yeah, half of them are gone.
I think when you share the stories of these families that come from all those different diverse backgrounds, I think it kind of unites folks and says, hey, let's put our political wrangling aside.
We have to do our duty in the legislature to fix this for these families so they don't have that fear. They shouldn't have that fear.
I think a success is that families that have dealt with this issue in their home for all these many years, to have the ability to get this treatment without fear of prosecution and without having to move to another state, that to me is what would be a success.
If we as a society are worried about the harm that can be done from cannabis oil, we should be equally concerned about the conversations patients have with their doctors every day about the alternative. They are talking about death, overdose, liver damage, hallucinations, decreased organ function, anger, confusion, nearly comatose-like behavior, depression, and fatigue. That's just for anti-epileptic drugs. We all know the right thing to do. The way you can help is to contact your representative. Tell them you support the medical refugees from Georgia and want to bring them home. We cannot move fast enough.